That a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in a most delightful way.
Hey everybody. So if you've seen the film Mary Poppins, you know where that song has come from. And for today's movie review, this film that I'm about to review for you today is basically about the pre-production plot process that the Walt Disney Studios had to go through, and what they had to do to convince the author P.L. Travers of the Mary Poppins books, in order to make the movie that we all know and love today. Um, so a spoonful of sugar. The movie talks about kind of how that song came to be, how they made the lyrics for it, um, how the author of the book, P.L. Travers, played by Emma Thompson in this. Um, and then keep in mind, this movie isn't just about that song being made; it's about the whole film being made and kind of how. Here, I'll actually start at the beginning for you. So basically, in the movie, you guys, um, the P.L. Travers books, the Mary Poppins books, have been very popular for a while. Walt Disney Studios has made several of their big films at this point. Walt Disney's still alive at this point in the movie. So, they got Bambi and Snow White and all that other stuff and Fantasia under their hands at this point. Um, and so for several years, Walt Disney has been trying to convince P.L. Travers that he really wants to make this live action film based off her book. And she clearly emphasizes that she wants it to be live action. She has something against the color red. She didn't want the color red to be in the movie. She had something against penguins. She had something against all these songs that were being made for the movie. She didn't like at all that they had musical numbers in the movie. Um, but most importantly, what really hurt her the most is there was a lot of things they were wanting to do with the script since they had a screenwriter for the movie. Sorry, I have some itch on my back here. I want to get quick. Um, basically, that's why the movie's called Saving Mr. Banks. Basically, is because P.L. Travers. That's actually not her real name. That's actually kind of her pen name that she used while writing her books, and but she lived in the Banks family. That was her real last name. And basically, her dad went through all these really bad alcohol problems. He had tuberculosis, from what I'm able to gather from the movie. He's always coughing up blood throughout the movie. He wasn't really, she remembered him being a good father and everything, but there was just a lot of problems he went through throughout the course of their life. The family always had to move. And so basically, there's a lot of family related issues that we see through a lot of flashbacks throughout the movie that are very close to P.L. Travers. And whenever the film crew of this movie was trying to do something that might mess up the vision that she once had about her family, because, they wanted to. Um, the most notable difference, too, is they wanted Mr. Banks in the Mary Poppins film to have a mustache and things of that nature. Because P.L. Travers, remembered her father looking completely different than that. See in the movie, Colin Farrell plays her dad, and he looks very different from the Mr. Banks that was used from the Mary Poppins movie. That she had this vision in her mind, and every time Walt Disney and these screenwriters and even the songwriters of the movie did something very different that P.L. Travers envisioned, she didn't want it to happen. She put her foot down. She wouldn't even sign the contract for a while. So this movie's about what Walt Disney really had to go through in order to convince P.L. Travers that he really could make a Mary Poppins film and give her book justice. And basically he went to her house at one point. Had to fly down there. So basically, this movie is about his journey of really convincing this author that what he was doing with her story was truly the right choice, that he really had every intention of making this story as good as possible on film, having his special touch on it, but not so much to the point where we wouldn't think we're watching something from P.L. Travers. Um, so basically, the movie is, like I said, about Walt Disney's journey of convincing P.L. Travers that he really wanted to make this movie. He had his heart in the right place, and he did everything in his power to make sure that P.L. Travers knew that going into this movie. So for Saving Mr. Banks, you guys, I thought it was a good movie. I definitely think acting-wise, this film is going to be up for some Oscars this year. At least that's my guess. Tom Hanks, Emma Thompson, Paul Giamatti, Jason Schwartzman. I'm going to get to Colin Farrell here in a little bit, but all of them seemed pretty Oscar-worthy to me. But like I said, I'll get to Colin Farrell here in a little bit. Um, So for the positives and negatives of this film, you guys, like I just said before, and like what I think the Film Academy is probably going to think about the movie too. Tom Hanks, Emma Thompson, Paul Giamatti all did a terrific job in this. I really actually wish Paul Giamatti almost had a bigger role in this because basically all he did in the movie was he was kind of the almost the taxi service for P.L. Travers from getting her to her hotel to Disney, the Disney studio that day to work on the pre-production process with this film production crew. Um, but either way, all three of them, Tom Hanks, Emma Thompson, and Paul Giamatti, all gave terrific performances in this. Tom Hanks specifically really gave me a really good interpretation of Walt Disney. Every time I've seen the guy on TV or film, that's definitely the way I remembered Walt Disney acting and behaving on a camera, or in front of the camera, I should say. Walt Disney had some very memorable monologues in this movie. Tom Hanks delivered them very well. Rather they actually happened with P.L. Travers or not, because he was trying to convince her throughout the movie that he really could make this into a good movie. Um, but he had some very good points to bring up to this author about why he really wanted to make this story into a movie in Walt Disney Studios. Um, very he mentioned how kind of how writing is kind of our way of getting inspiration onto the next generation, and it kind of inspires us and keeps us all in order, and very convincing speeches that he had in this. um, I liked how the film explored the ups and downs of the pre-production that Mary Poppins went through. There was a lot of times where the P.L. Travers loved what they were doing, but there was also a lot of times, specifically in the beginning of the production, where she completely disliked everything that was going on. I like how the film explored that she really approved of certain things and really disapproved of certain things. So I really liked how this movie explored those two things. I like how the film explores kind of how people interpret stories and how they really mean a lot of things to people, specifically if that story's very meaningful to that person. The film really kind of has that message where people have interpretations of certain stories, and when different interpretations try to mix and work together on something, specifically with this movie, with P.L. Travers making this book, Walt Disney trying to get this movie made, two different interpretations of the Mary Poppins story going on. It just really shows kind of the mishmash hiatus that can sometimes happen when two different people have two different interpretations of the same story. And I really like how Saving Mr. Banks really explores that really well. Um, I like how the film homages old Walt Disney movies. Walt Disney himself was talking about, obviously Tom Hanks as Walt Disney, talking about how kind of his previous successes, his previous failures before going into Mary Poppins really formed who he was, and kind of how he took those good things that happened to him in his career so far to really make sure that Mary Poppins was going to work on the big screen. So I liked all the little homages that they made to previous Disney movies, and even the Spoonful of Sugar song, like I showed here at the beginning of the video, that was very much homage throughout the movie, even before that song came to inception at one point in the production. For the negatives, you guys, there's some flashback scenes in this movie that really felt pretty worthless to me. Because we see a lot of P.L. Travers' childhood through these flashbacks throughout the movie, and kind of how Mary Poppins is very meaningful to her. John Lee Hancock, who directed this film in Blindside, wanted to show that. But there are some scenes in her flashbacks that really are pretty worthless, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's just like, okay, they moved to a house. They moved to a house. It's just like that. That has nothing to do with this Mary Poppins production. It's not even the same house that gave her inspiration to make Mary Poppins. The family just moved into a house, and they dedicate like 10 minutes of the movie to that. Another flashback too is just like basically any flashback before Colin Farrell's health got into trouble, and things that actually. Like the aunt looking like Mary Poppins and things of that nature. There was just some flashback scenes, just like that really didn't need to be in there. And then I get to my next point. I thought Paul Giamatti had a very small role, and I really wish he had a much bigger role in this. I would actually, if I directed this movie, I would have taken all the scenes that were pretty worthless in the flashbacks and replaced that with scenes involving P.L. Travers and the Paul Giamatti character. Paul Giamatti was talking to her in the movie that his daughter or son, one of his children, was handicapped, and P.L. Travers kind of she had very good words of wisdom to kind of keep them, inspired and motivated to whatever career goals and whatever goals in life that his children had. And I really wish there was more scenes in that movie that were dedicated to that, because on the scenes where that was happening, I thought it was very, very beautiful, and it was kind of interesting to see how P.L. Travers, even though she really didn't like Paul Giamatti, um, she gave him words of wisdom that his children can work off of, that he can give to his children when he gets home. And it felt very, it was a very different approach for the character. I like how we had that two different duality of this character, how she was this very awful person on the set, but yet when she was in the car with Paul Giamatti and they were talking about his daughter and things of that nature, um, she was almost a completely different person. I liked how she had that duality of her personality. So I wish Paul Giamatti had a much bigger role in this, because I really liked his character in this movie, and I love him as an actor. So every time you get in a movie, do the best with him. And I loved him in the movie, but I think they could have done a lot more with him, because his character was master in this. He knew exactly what kind of character he was playing in this movie. I actually thought there was too many flashbacks too. I mean, sure. I mean, a lot of these flashbacks did relate to how P.L. Travers made Mary Poppins, but there was way too many of them. It got to the point where there was more flashbacks than things going on we would see in the pre-production of Mary Poppins. And I really would. I went into this movie really hoping that we would have got more of the pre-production of Mary Poppins than more so of the P.L. Travers childhood stuff, because every time the childhood stuff happened, I almost kind of rolled my eyes like, oh, this again. And I really wish the film would have dedicated more time to the actual pre-production. And like I was saying before, I wanted a lot more screen time out of Paul Giamatti's character, because I really thought him and P.L. Travers, whenever they were on screen together, it really had some really interesting chemistry there. I felt Colin Farrell. This is where Colin Farrell was coming in from earlier. I felt he was terribly miscast in this movie. I'm sorry for those who really liked him in the movie. I felt he was very miscast in this. I think someone like Clive Owen or Gerard Butler or someone of that nature would have been a much better choice. I thought Colin Farrell was a little too happily, musically, just not a good choice. I thought he just was. It felt very different for him, and not different in a good way. I just didn't like the way he took on this character, because I'm so used to seeing him in films like The Recruit and Daredevil and things of that nature, like kind of, like more so the action thriller stuff. And seeing him in a movie like this was very much a bad choice. They might as well just have Jason Statham as Walt. It was Walt Disney at this point if they had him as this character. But by the way, I thought Tom Hanks was a great Walt Disney in this too, though. So um, there's a lot of several overly cheesy moments in this film as well. On the scene where they made the "Let's Go Fly a Kite" song, P.L. Travers is singing and dancing along with the musicians in that scene, and it felt very cheesy, because it had more of a musical number direction. It was fine at first that she wants to sing along and dance with her feet and everything while they're first showing her this song, but the fact that they turned it into like this musical number in this music room, I thought was very, very cheesy. It got to the point where it's like, if I really wanted to see this, people singing and dancing to this, I could have just watched Mary Poppins at that point. Um, but overall, guys, I give Saving Mr. Banks a pretty solid 8 out of 10. Not an 8.5 out of 10. I don't think it's that good. But an 8 out of 10. It has a lot to say. Very good performances in this. But there's some script decisions like, too many flashbacks, some worthless flashbacks, and Colin Farrell being miscast in some overly cheesy moments that do make this a hit or miss experience for me. But overall, I liked it more so than I hated it. So 8 out of 10 for me. I think it's pretty good, but I think with a better script, it could have been a better movie.